Hey, it's John, and welcome to the interview. Today, I'm joined by Robert Hartline, who went from selling cell phones from the trunk of his car in college to building a chain of 57 wireless stores. He's also founded three other companies, including Callproof, a software company, Dang It Repair, a phone repair business with 8 locations, and Hytch, a carpooling service, which launched in September of 2017. He's a serial entrepreneur who's built his businesses to generate more than $100 million in total revenue. And Robert's newest company, Shift Your Time, coaches entrepreneurs on how to move internal communications from outdated things like email to a phone app called Marco Polo, which saves business leaders at least 40 hours per month. So he's a highly productive guy. We're going to be digging into his entrepreneurial journey, how he manages to pull all this off. Man, there's got to be a lot of balls in the air, and what he's up to in the future. But before we jump in, I want to let you all know that this episode is sponsored by the $1 Billion Legacy Agency, where we work with business leaders and movement leaders, helping them expand their thought leadership using new media strategies. So Robert, thank you so much for coming by and chatting.
Awesome. Thanks, John, for having me.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So let's give the readers a little bit of the life of Robert up to this point, the Reader's Digest version of, where'd you grow up and what'd you hear about business and money and success and those type of things when you were a kid?
Well, for me, I grew up on an Army base called Baumholder in Germany. It's where I graduated high school, and my dad was a music teacher on the Army base, and only child, so super bored trying to figure out how to do things on my own and try to entertain myself. So, I had several different businesses, whether I was a DJ or paper boy or car washing dude or mowing grass. I was doing all those things to save up for college, and really, honestly, fell into sales. And that all began with answering an ad to sell phones door to door. And just so happened that during that little journey of knocking on doors and trying to convince people in 1994 they need to buy a cell phone, I happened to have an amazing experience. I was sitting at my house in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and I got a knock on the door. I answered the door, and there was a guy standing there with a drill, and he was holding in his hand a peephole. And he said, if I can't put this peephole in your door in less than 60 seconds, it's free. And he said, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you can buy this peephole from Home Depot for $1.50 and put it in yourself. But the drill bit is $20, and I've messed up a lot of doors. The peephole is $20. I said, yeah, I need a peephole, because if I had a peephole, I wouldn't have answered the door, because I'm trying to chill here. But I watched him do that same spiel with 4 other people. I watched him drive away in a bright cherry red Toyota Supra. And in 1994, the Toyota Supra was the car.
That was a cool car.
The car you would want. Anyway, the lesson for me was, oh my gosh, you can use your top hole in your face and make money. And that's all he was doing. He was talking to strangers. He knew who his audience was, people without peepholes in their door. It could not be more simpler than that. But that little thing inspired me to stick to selling, try to figure it out, how to get good at it. And that really started my career in sales.
Yeah, so a peephole motivated you. Wow, that's quite a story. It sounds a little risque, maybe almost. But...
I know.
But anyway, so you caught the entrepreneurial bug and the sales bug early, and you started all these companies, and you started selling phones out of your car, it sounds like, and then you went on to really scale this business from kind of the classic American dream story of the kid who's the scrappy guy that built it up. So what was the motivation behind that, and share some of your motivations for starting that first company and some of the others as well.
Well, I'm a creature of habit. I go to the same restaurants, eat the same food, and sometimes you just stick to the same thing. And selling phones has been something I've been sticking to since '94. Started my first location in about 1998, and just kind of grew from there. Initially, I grew locations at its protection. You know, a lot of people will get a physical location and really commit to that location. But what happens if someone decides to put a competitor nearby, or sells the building, or you don't own the property, or they move the road and there's traffic no longer passing by your location? So I really began this journey of kind of just diversifying not only what I did for a living in terms of my business, but diversifying the business so it didn't rely on all my business to be one location. And so,
Right.
you know, trying to scale up from that. And, you know, over the last, you know, up to about 4 years ago, we had 13 locations. We now have 57 locations, plus a chain of wireless phone repair stores. But really the scale in the last 4 years has been tremendous. We were 2 years in a row, fastest growing company in Middle Tennessee. And last year we're fastest growing business. And really that's a testament to kind of changing some fundamental beliefs about how business works and what we do every day.
Right. So it sounds like the most dangerous, as you know, the most dangerous word is one, right? So you wanted to diversify out of that one location. And then, yeah, it sounds like you're growing like crazy. So why is that? Why do you feel like you've now hit the gas pedal? I mean, you've obviously fleshed out the idea and now you're scaling that out. What would you say if you had to boil it down to one thing? What's caused your growth?
Well, one thing that has helped, you know, if you're in the retail business, it's not an easy journey. You know, it's very hard to find staff. It's very hard to figure out the motivational triggers that you need to use to get people to do things you need them to do in order to generate revenue, right? It's very challenging, very highly competitive business. But what I kind of discovered over the last few years is that a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that 80% of your day-to-day activities are built around communication.
Right.
And typically the average entrepreneur is spending most of their time and energy in email or on the phone is their core go-to communication strategy if they aren't talking to people in a physical workplace. What I learned from years ago is that the larger your organization gets, the more interesting challenges that happen through, whether it's level of management, but getting information disseminated from one person to another is a huge ordeal. I don't care if you have 3 people in your organization or you have 300. Getting information disseminated down to the lowest common denominator is very difficult. You know, because you're in marketing, how people read their emails. You know, the click-through rates you get on junk mail is not far different than internal communication in most organizations. You know, the more you email, the less they listen to what you have to say. And so I luckily was introduced to an app by one of my employees that we started using, and it changed the game on how we communicate fast to our team and really kind of get things done.
Yeah, no, there's yeah, you're spot on with that. That's one of the biggest pain points a lot of these bigger companies have is the internal communications and training and continuity. I have a client right now we're working with that has 18,000 employees, and they have just this huge sales force, and they're using tools now like you're doing more like with the apps, and you know, I do a lot of webinars and stuff. Like we oversee that for them to help kind of, you know, reduce the amount of information that needs to go out and just kind of, you know, just improve that in a scalable way. So so it sounds like that's your focus then right now is more on. Tell me about some of your current companies, because you have this Marco Polo app and you have another business where you're more on the coaching and consulting side, right?
Yeah. So the app is not my app. It's an app that, you know, anybody can download. It's free. You don't need to pay anything for it. It's just a little short description. It's a video walkie-talkie app. And what's unique about the app, and this is really critical, is that phone calls, and a lot of people don't realize when the phone was invented, it took 50 years for the phone to become mainstream. People are very slow to adopt new technology.
Right.
It's just the nature of all of us. And a phone call, if my phone is on and my ringer's on, which my ringer's hardly ever on, it's waiting for me to be interrupted. And if I'm working on a project, I'm thinking, I'm writing, or whatever I'm doing, that phone call equates to a 25 minutes of lost productivity because of the distraction of it just simply ringing.
Mm.
But we, especially entrepreneurs, when that ring happens, it's like a slot machine, right? And when you answer it, it's like pulling down the lever. And is this a new deal coming in? Did I close a sale? Is there something good on the other end? And then it's a robocall, or it's an employee with hey, Robert, you got a minute? I got this idea. The beauty of having Marco Polo is you're recording a video, very easy, hit a start button, hit stop, and that's all you have to do. But you can communicate with the proper way to communicate, which is everything: your face, your vocal tone, the tempo in your voice, the volume of your voice, all these little micro expressions that you see on my face. I'm communicating not only with my voice, but everything you see is part of the communication. And when you have a tool that allows you to communicate maybe an action, if I were to say, John, you didn't get that report turned in, and I got to have this because I have this important call in about 2 hours. Or if I say, John, man, just whenever you get a chance, I need that report from the other day. Just let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Which is more important?
Right.
And you gotta, in order to communicate effectively, sometimes we whether we're communicating in email or phone, you lose a lot of that. And the beauty of that Marco Polo, I can use video to communicate. And then I can also, which I think is really more important than anything, is the fact that it has groups. Mm-hmm. So I can segment groups of mine together. So if I want to talk to just area leaders, I can speak to them. If I want to just speak to store managers, I could speak to them, and everyone hear me at their convenience. So if they're with a customer, they're not stopping what they're doing to download some information. So it makes it super quick.
Yeah, sounds like a cool device. So, so yeah, you got like 3 or 4 different businesses going right now. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me some of the lessons learned, because let's say people listening to this are entrepreneurs or business owners. Like, you've grown all these businesses very successfully, and they're all generating a lot of revenue and things like that. So what are some of your lessons learned as you've created this process for yourself?
Well, for me, when I start a business, it's got to work in conjunction with what I'm already doing. And so I try not, I don't start businesses that are completely separated. There is some crossfade between the two that help. And, Callproof is an app for outside salespeople. It's one of my companies I started about 9 years ago. And I wanted to tackle a challenge that I had in our business, which was simply people don't like entering stuff in CRM. Mm-hmm. And so high performance salespeople don't enter anything because they're selling, and underperformers over-report what they're actually doing, but you don't know what the truth is. And I've seen this from hiring hundreds and hundreds of salespeople. And so I built an app that took all your call history, and throw it into the cloud and match it with known prospects and clients. And it basically spits out the daily activity that a salesperson does. And it does all these other fancy things like, checking into a business in much like you would on Facebook, where you check into a business. Well, we do that with the same type of experience, but the rep does not have to enter a bunch of data. But it was an example of something I needed to solve in my own business, and we created it, and it's in the marketplace. And that's one. But it's, a lot of people, some of the advice that I would offer lots of people is you got to stay focused. And if someone were to look at my portfolio of things I'm involved with, they go, well, Robert's not focused. Well, that's just my nature. I enjoy this. This is business to me is my hobby, is my fun. I enjoy creating and building teams. It's fun.
Mm-hmm. So you would say one of your words of advice is try to stay focused, but if you're going to start different things, try to keep them as close to the other. So like have one kind of like a tree almost with its main, I guess you'd say, branch, and then have smaller branches that come off of that. But don't just start random things and be all over
Yeah.
the place. Like all your stuff is sort of aligned or it is aligned, right, with kind of a
Mhm.
core theme around.
And usually I'm a starter, but I'm not a finisher. So I'll get
Yeah.
something started. I'll hand it to a competent professional that's going to lead it. And then I'll go off and do other things. Is
Yeah.
generally how I do it. I try not to get in the way of the success. If I hang on to something too long, um, I tend to fail.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit. Cause I think there's a lot of people out here that are great starters. They don't necessarily like to manage the thing. So what you come up with the idea and validate and launch and get the initial user base. And then at a certain point you hire a CEO or someone to oversee, and you kind of look at your next branch on the tree to kind of look to go after.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. And a lot of times, one of the things that has helped me is giving up some ownership. One
Okay.
of the ways that I've grown several of our businesses is I give up a little piece of the action for a competent leader to come in to actually carry the ball, and that has that focus. What you don't want to have, most serial entrepreneurs really struggle with staying focused on one particular thing. They are off to the races
Yep.
to lots of different ideas, and they understand that life is short, and they understand that they have the power to do many different things. And for me, I have to go, all right, I've proved it works. I've been on a bunch of sales calls. I've figured out the market is seeking what I'm selling. And then I get someone to actually step in and do the rest for me.
So
And
do you get your businesses to a certain point, like with yourself and a small team, and then you bring that person in, or do you look for kind of that board or that group of people early and give them a piece of the pie early to get them in? Or
I've done that first. I've done that before in the past, and I failed miserably.
okay,
A lot of times entrepreneurs tend to fall in this trap that they have people that start with them, and they have this guilt factor where they have to bring them in, give them some ownership. And that's really a misnomer. You would be amazed at how many people really don't care about ownership.
Hmm.
They really don't care. Some do, but they'll be very vocal about it in the beginning. But often we put our feet in our mouths and offer ownership because, maybe we're not paying them the competent wage because you're a startup, right? And so you have this little guilt that, even though they're being part of something special, they're like, well, I'm not paying you your market rate, but what about if I, paid you this, in equity? And I tell everyone, you're better suited to change your compensation to have payouts later when the company is profitable, to pay for that early pain that they may have exercised, right? In the very beginning, they worked the fanny off. There's nothing to say. You could say there's a future bonus if we get these certain levels, but the idea of selling the idea of some ownership stake, it sounds sexy. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing worse. And this happened to me. I had a developer, brought him on, great guy. He helped build one of our software platforms for several years, but he went off and started doing something different. And here he is having ownership of this company that he's no longer a part of. But he really didn't even care
okay,
about the success of the company, But I was able to fix that and buy his shares, and it was very fair, and it worked out very well. But a lot of entrepreneurs fall in this trap that they have to share the wealth when it comes to ownership. But many, many young people these days are not that interested in that. They're interested in experiences, in learning. And sometimes what we perceive as things that we would want if we were in those shoes are not the same things.
interesting. Yeah, so you'd recommend finding like a young integrator to bring in early, pay them a decent salary, but maybe not the top, and then have performance or threshold payments for bonuses versus giving them an equity stake in your venture. Okay.
Yeah.
It's good advice. Yeah. Any other advice you want to give around that? And then then I want to move on to kind of how you actually manage all this stuff each day.
Well, in terms of, gosh, one topic that is in along the same thing is the motivation factor, and something that I could touch on that I think a lot of entrepreneurs face every single day regarding salespeople. And salespeople is generally the first step that you've grown a business, because once entrepreneur goes from wearing many hats, including sales,
Right.
usually the first good hire is a salesperson. And a lot of people struggle with that hire, and it's the most important hire you will ever make is hiring salespeople. But what I tell people is start with 2 salespeople. Always have 2 salespeople, because you can best benchmark performance when there's 2 people to benchmark against. And if you've done a good job hiring, you've hired someone very competitive, you will have 2 people that are fighting tooth and nail to be successful.
Right.
And that is probably the best advice I have in my bucket of tricks, because when you have 2 high performance salespeople battling it out, you most of the time will see a rocket ship happen. And there's nothing more inspiring than bringing a potential new hire to a sales team that is selling.
Yeah.
Because that will inspire them to sell altogether.
A little competition, kind of get them going there. Yep. How do you pay your salespeople? Do you start with just commission? Do you have like a per appointment plus commission, or how do you structure that usually when they're starting?
Well, in the retail store, it's very cut and dry. They get an hourly wage, and they get commissions. There's bonuses.
Right.
There's some interesting new tools that exist for this new worker, which, but with the rise of Uber and all these different, I guess, work at home kind of structures, they have some really interesting payment structures. And we found this company called Instant.io, which is a credit card that I can add money to at whenever I want. So I don't have to go through payroll or anything like that. But we do a lot of interesting spiffs and sales promotions based on putting actual dollars on these credit cards. And so that's been very helpful to kind of motivate people on certain things. If we need certain types of products sold, we can add incentives. But that's been very helpful for me.
Awesome. Good advice on the sales, and then also on the focus and kind of keeping along the same tree with your offers. So I appreciate you sharing some insights from your journey there with everybody. Let's pivot to you, like, cause you got all these balls in the air, and it sounds like you're a quick start kind of guy. You like to get it going and then hand it over. That's probably a big part of how you can manage, 3 or 4 different businesses. But what does your typical day look like? Could you have like a specific routine that you follow each day, and tell us about that?
So I generally wake up at 5 in the morning. I do my workout. I work out 6 days a week. Generally I do 1 day a week. On a Sunday will be a yoga, something. But generally it's waking up early, workout. I start working right away, and just kind of clear my schedule. I'm not one to keep appointments on my calendar. I really hate appointments on my calendar. I like to kind of not plan out exactly what I'm going to do.
Interesting.
And I like the freedom of that. I mean, one of the reasons that we become entrepreneurs is for the F word, freedom. We want to be able to wake up and decide what we want to do. And so I'll spend most of the morning shifting through emails here and there and looking at reports on what I'm going to do. And then I'll take action on a few items, but I really do not lead a very busy day. I try not to do that. I try to really leave some room for thought and coming up with new things that I would like to accomplish. And I do a lot of my work in that communication channel with Marco Polo, because really, as a CEO, my mission is to inspire. And so every single day I'm trying to figure out who can I thank that's rocking it, who can I congratulate for doing a good, well done job. And then who needs help, who needs help in leadership to help motivate these other staff members.
So you feel like having that open space in your calendar helps you to think a big picture and kind of look over the whole thing versus stuffing your calendar with tons of meetings. And like you
Yeah,
say, you
I
can't,
don't do a lot of that.
yeah,
I mean, I have an office that I rarely go to. I mean, I believe I'm a big believer that the reason our nation is so unhealthy is because we are still reliant that the office is where actual work happens. And if you look at the history of office space um, came to be over one simple thing. They needed a place to put these giant computers.
Hmm.
And they started putting these people in these giant rooms to go work every single day. And you got people commuting, spending an undue amount of time in their car, usually by themselves, to work in an office every day. And, you know, you've done it in your history. You know, you go to an office every single day and spend most of your day being distracted or having your coworkers talk about the sports last night or their kids or some other drama, and constant barrage of people coming in your office asking for a few moments of your time.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're in your car going home and going, what did I accomplish today?
Right. Very small percentage of the time is actual, real, focused, deep work, right?
Exactly.
On projects. So how do you keep yourself in prime condition? You mentioned you work out. Anything else you do that really kind of keeps your mind and your thoughts at a high level?
Well, what's helped me a lot is I do a lot of travel. Um, I feel like the real connections that happen in your head happen when you're traveling to a new place with new languages and new people to see and new places to adventure. But I have a house in Costa Rica that I spend a lot of my time at. I do a lot of surfing there. Being around a lot of greenery kind of resets my clock a bit. I also get that
Yep.
same sensation when I walk through the forest. You know, there's a lot of studies around what nature gives you as a way to reclaim your sanity when you're in these, you know, all this technology and all these constant stream of information that we get every single day.
Yeah.
I know for myself, I have to reconnect with nature every couple of months, or I'll find myself in that situation where I feel like every day is a hamster wheel. You're kind of doing the
Yeah.
same thing, but not really going anywhere.
Right. How many hours would you say you generally work in a work day? Do you work like 5 days a week, and do you work it all on weekends, or you just work when you feel like it, or like what does that look like?
My average week is about a 50-hour work week. And a lot of that is I don't consider it like work, like a
Right.
traditional person thinks of work. I mean,
Right.
I enjoy about 90% of my day.
Great.
Certainly I don't enjoy those days where things aren't going that well, but for the most part, I have a very blessed life, and there's no doubt.
Great. Yeah. What do you read? Are you a reader? Do you read a lot, or do you just what does that look like for you? Anything you'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I love to read. You know, my favorite author is Robert Greene, 48
Hmm.
Laws of Power, and Laws of Human Nature is one of his latest books. It has been fantastic. You know, lately I've been on this YouTube kick. I don't know if you've had a subscription yet to YouTube, but it's by far the best money I've ever spent every single month.
The
Being able to,
the YouTube
pardon me?
TV, that one?
Just regular YouTube.
Oh,
It's a YouTube subscription, but they just take all the ads. So
okay.
you don't realize how many ads you're actually consuming
Right.
until you take them away.
Yeah.
And the amount of learning that one can get out of YouTube has been fantastic.
Right. So you watch a lot of YouTube instructional stuff, what TED
Yeah.
Talks, sales stuff,
Yep.
all
All of
that kind
that.
of thing.
All of the
Yeah.
above. Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. What kind of impact would you say you make on those around you? Like, do you like a lot of people are using their businesses for a vehicle for improving, community or whatever. Do you think about that and engage in that quite a bit?
No, absolutely. And you know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with a business modeling called traction. But
Yeah, no.
Traction is a book that was written a few years ago, and one of the fundamentals behind this book is building your core value structure. And so, whenever we have new hires that start in my organization, I have a model that's called I Care, and I Care basically is integrity, accountability, adaptability, respect and excitement. And all of those words have a meaning. And so when I bring in new hires, I spend an hour and 30 minutes with these new hires talking about these 6 fundamental things. The I care is a feeling and a sensation I'm trying to bring to a customer, that when they walk into one of our locations, that they know that we care about them. And we have a process that we walk new hires through. And that 1 hour and 30 minutes I do with a new hire, I really try to paint the picture of, number one, why this is the right place to work, and really what they're going to get out of this experience. Because I realize that I'm a stepping stone to something different. And I know they're not going to be with me for decades, which I have people that have been with me for more than 10 years. But fundamentally, for me, it's really my good outlet to really give back. Because if I really build some fundamental skills, like even just mindset shifts that a lot of people have about sales, or what life can be and what should be for most people. I have a lot of people that come up to me afterwards and thank me or reach out to me years later. There's just something that comes with building someone that's a young person that is about to experience what real world is all about, and how to become stronger with your skills to really enhance what you can do in your whole life.
Right. So you kind of look at your business as a personal development tool for these younger people then.
Oh, it absolutely is. And it's something I enjoy doing.
Sure.
For sure. I mean, it benefits me obviously because I have people that are starting that success journey. And a lot of people don't realize the power of getting into a success cycle. And I tell people all the time that success is like an old lawnmower. When the season's about to start, it's time to cut your grass. You go up to that cold lawnmower and you pull on the cord. It doesn't start right away. And it's much like life. Life is just not, I'm going to be successful, and you try something and you're successful. It doesn't work that way. You try several things. But if it was me selling phones door to door, so I'd have to go talk to a strange door. So I have to knock on that door and be nervous and scared, and I would have to try. And it's obviously very scary to be turned down by people. And, but once you pull on that cord and it doesn't start, you gotta be willing to pull on it again.
Right.
And what ends up happening is once you pull it and you get the spark and you get the gas going to the carburetor and the engine's running, it'll keep running. Well, success is much like that. If I do something, whether it's maybe doing a cold call, I'll knock on a door and someone opens the door and they end up buying 5 phones from me. Well, there's a dopamine rush that's going to occur.
Sure.
My mind is going to go, oh my God, this is awesome. Give me more of this. And so what ends up happening is success is addicting. So once you do a positive action that yields a result, your body's going to go and try to repeat that. And that's when you get in that success cycle. And then it's almost like this momentum thing that just will never allow you to fail if you stay in that. And that's why I tell everyone, as an owner of a business, I'm a drug dealer. I need to find the little things that John does that is successful, the little sparks. And if I see an employee that maybe isn't being successful, their sales are down, my role is to figure out one little thing. Oh, he came to work on time. John, dude, thanks for coming to work on time, man. You're awesome. I really appreciate it. I know it sounds very little, but I can build on little.
Mm-hmm.
And if I keep working and building them, and I inspire them to try something that yields a positive return, they're going to go, ooh, this feels good. And when they get it, it's no different than what drug dealers do. Hey, try some of this. Well, I want them to try a little bit of that success because I can get them addicted to it. And then when they start getting addicted to it, and then I coach them on, success is not a journey for me. It's a journey for my whole family. And your family has to be involved in your success journey. If they aren't, you're not going to be successful. Right. And I tell people all the time too, when they come to work here, you're going to have a conversation with your spouse. And this is how your day is going to start. There is no negativity before I go to work. You're not going to hit me with a bunch of arguments or things that may make me to have a negative mindset. And if you conversate with your friends and family about what you need to be successful, and it's all positivity. I need to be jammed up, ready to rock it
Yeah.
when I work my store. I mean,
Yeah.
I need to have the right energy. I want someone to come in and feel the magnetism coming from me, and they want to buy from me.
Yeah.
And there's a way that you can do that, but you have to build this bubble so you have a very positive outlook when you start your day. And communication with your family, like, listen, don't be negative with me. It's the morning. I got to make money today. If we're going to have a hard conversation, let's do that when I get home from work, and we can handle it then. But a lot of success relies on your spouse.
Sure.
Not enough people talk about how important our spouses are to our journey.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you're pretty passionate about that topic then. You really went going there. So that's very cool. So let's pivot to you as we wrap this up. I like to ask this question at the end of the interviews because I'm always curious what people's answers are. What kind of impact do you want to make with the second half of your life? Like, do you want to do something different than what you're doing, or are you going to continue to roll with what you're doing? Any shifts that you want to make, or what kind of impact, in your communities, in your company, in the world, do you want to make?
I think I've sold myself short to some regard because I used to think with very small lenses and used to think very small. And it's funny when you write your goals down, it's amazing how easy those are to be attainable.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times we don't write them big enough. If we just write them a little bigger, and could we get there? And so I think the second part of my journey, if you would call it that, is really to be focused on much larger ideas. And
like what?
I have a laundry list of things I would love to do. One of the things I started a few years ago is this carpooling reward system called Hytch, and we pay people to carpool. And through several studies that we've done with some major universities, we've discovered that if you offer a cash incentive for someone to carpool, they will initiate a carpool. If you take away the incentive, they continue to carpool. The beauty of a carpool is it makes your time and your travel seem so much less stressful. And obviously, there's a lot of benefit in terms of saving money and maybe saving the planet to some regard. But that was one of those ideas. I thought, well, how could I make an impact with an app? And we have absolutely done that. And we have many different states that we work with creating these right incentives to get people to make a better decision and take someone to work with them.
Yeah. So basically you're saying to focus more on impactful business ventures. Do you have a desire to share like your lessons or thought leadership with more? I know you're doing like this podcast or some of these other things. Is that something you're looking at in the second half, or what does that look like for you?
Well, what I've done over the last couple of years with this shift your time model. So I help entrepreneurs learn this app called Marco Polo and the way you communicate. And I teach them how to create their company playbook so they can move away from the emailing that they're doing and move away from being connected to their phone so much. So right now, that's what I spend my free time doing when I'm working with clients. And to me, it's rewarding because I get so many people that reach out to me and thank me that their marriage is doing better, or thank me because they're growing their business because they're able to articulate what they want, what their wishes are. And you're able to do that by changing some habits that we all have in communication, which a lot of them just retooling them is tweaking is not a big behavior change. But once you do it, you absolutely discover that you have more time than you actually realize.
Sure. Perfect. Well, any final words, Robert, as we wrap this up, and then we'll wrap this up and make sure to let everybody know, and we'll have some links below this video as well on the show notes page, but where they can reach out to you and if they hear this and are inspired or want to get involved more with what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit me at shiftyourtime.com. You can also get me on the Twitter at Hartline Robert. And John, I really appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link those things up below this video so everyone can check that out. So anyway, thanks for coming on, Robert, and hope you all enjoyed this discussion with Robert Hartline. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's kicking some real butt out there and shared some great insights with us today. So hope you enjoyed this interview, and we will catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, John.